Welcome to HandHeld Gaming Reviews. This video is going to provide some tips if you're looking to get into the retro handheld hobby. It was originally a script I drafted as a part of one of my other retro handheld reviews, but I soon realised it would warrant a video all to itself. So here we go. Tip 1. Have a think about what kinds of systems you want to play. Did you grow up with the NES or Sega Mega Drive? Do you have any interest in playing PS2 or GameCube games? My advice is to focus on the systems first that you want to play and not the specs of the device. If your primary concern is how much power these units have, to be honest, you're better off just buying a Steam Deck, provided that you're okay with its form factor. Most reviewers will let you know if a device is good for PS1 or older, or hits the mark with GameCube, so on and so forth. I do feel for anyone who's hell-bent on emulating Saturn games, as for some reason that system seems particularly challenging to emulate, so you might need something with a little more horsepower if that's the system you're gunning for. You'll find that generally most devices from around the $40 to $60 mark or around the $80 Australian mark will play up to PS1 games quite comfortably, and if you're happy with that, you're spoiled for choice. Tip 2. Consider what form factor you're looking for. Do you want to throw this thing in your pocket or in a bag? Do you want something with a bigger screen, a smaller screen? For example, I bought my wife a Myo A30 and she literally just throws this thing in her handbag. It's super usable, super portable. Half the time I'm sure she doesn't even know that it's there. I'll review that unit at some stage, so if that's something you're interested in, hit that subscribe button. If you want something more durable and don't want to worry about a case, maybe a clamshell is a way to go. Was the DMG Game Boy something that you owned as a kid? Maybe a vertical is more your thing. There's a number of options no matter what form factor you're looking for, so if you can have that in the back of your mind, it might inform the reviews that you tend to look for. Tip 3. Consider if screen bezels bother you. This one ties hand in hand with tip number 1. Would you prefer something in a 4x3 for the titles you're looking for, or would you be happy with a 1x1? 16x10, 16x9, noting that at some point for many systems you can expect some level of black bars or bezel graphics. If bezels or black bars are something that might hurt your feelings, then have a think about the console games that you'd like to play and match the device to that console. For example, I missed out on the GBA growing up. No real reason, I just never owned one. Looking at the library now, it's something that I've recently really wanted to get into. So, I bought the RG35XX SP from Anbernic, with the Game Boy Advance bezel at the bottom of the 4x3 screen simulating the look of the original SP. The aspect ratios are just about dead on for this thing. The unit also has the advantage of looking great for SNES games, which is one of my favourite consoles of all time. So it ticked a few boxes there for me. If you're wanting to play more PS Vita games, for example, then you might be looking for something with a wider aspect ratio. Or if you're looking to use widescreen packs, then same thing applies. Tip 4. Ask yourself how important thumbsticks are to you. If you're looking at PS1 or older systems, you might be able to get away with a system that doesn't have any thumbsticks or has just the one thumbstick on the left-hand side. And this comes with a number of advantages, including pocketability and in some cases price. Having said that, if you want thumbsticks, there are plenty of choices there too. The main distinction I've noticed are some brands like Anbernic have a propensity for the thumbsticks to snap to the cardinal points. Not so much an issue if you're playing arcade style games, and there is custom firmware out there that addresses the issue for some handhelds. So if that's important to you, just something to consider. It's really not something that bothers me either way, but I'm sure one of these days I'll come across a game where I realise why people are making a fuss over it. Tip 5. Consider if there are specific features you need. Do you need Wi-Fi because you want to use retro achievements? Do you want to use Bluetooth controllers? Do you need the ability to display games on an external screen like a TV? Just some things to keep in mind as you watch the countless reviews on the many devices out there to see what ticks those boxes. Tip 6. Consider if you want to be able to use it out of the box. Some systems are better than others if you want to just pull the unit out of the box and start using it without worrying about tinkering with custom firmware or which emulation software you want to use. Tinkering is half the fun for me, but having said that, you can get away with playing a lot of games out of the box on devices like the Anbernic Linux range. I should put a word of caution here. In my opinion, no matter what brand you buy, there's always going to be some level of technical knowledge required. At the very least, it'll be really handy for you to know how to change the core you're using or how to adjust the scaling for looks versus performance. There are heaps of guides out there to walk you through this though, so don't let that deter you. I'll link a few of my favourite channels in the description below. Most of those have video guides, and some like Retro Game Core maintain written guides as well. Tip 7. Have a think about custom firmware. Some devices are better supported than others for custom firmware. It's the advantage to the likes of Anbernic releasing something like 5,000 devices using the same chipset. Some, however, are less supported. So, for example, the Myo A30 I bought for my wife essentially only has Spruce OS as a popular custom firmware option that I could find. To be fair, when I say find, it was just a quick Google. But either way, that compared to systems like the Anbernic range using the XX series of chips, I'll flash up on the screen what that actual chipset is, the H700 or something from memory. Look, because they're using the same chipset for a number of devices, there are quite a few custom firmware options like MuOS or Nuli out there that you can get, and probably a whole bunch more that I don't even know about. So if having a bit of a tinker is something you'd like to do, keep that in mind when choosing the device. Tip 8. consider what retails you have access to. This one might seem a bit odd as a tip, but I'm sure there are regions of the world that have easier time than others getting their hands on these sorts of devices from reliable stores. I can't speak for the rest of the world, but AliExpress ships to Australia and the pricing is significantly better than Amazon for a lot of these units. For the longest time, I was interested in these handhelds, but I only ever looked them up on Amazon. In Australia, at least, the price difference is around 1.5 times that of AliExpress. You do of course get certain guarantees with Amazon and quicker shipping, but I feel like the Amazon sellers in Australia are just buying a bunch of these things off AliExpress and reselling them at a 50% markup. I guess the tip here is to try and do some research on the retailers in your region and find out which are reliable and less likely to send you a box with a hand-drawn picture of a Game Boy on it. Tip 9. Once you've considered all these tips, you should be able to narrow down to which units fall within your price range. From there, you can narrow down your review searches to see the devices that tick most of your boxes and which are the best for the budget you have. For example, if all you want to play are SNES games and the R36S is a high enough quality for you based on the reviews you've seen, you're better off dropping 50 bones on that than the 250 bones an RG Cube will set you back. Last but not least, tip 10. Don't fall into the trap of waiting for the next model. Unless you're chasing something that will hit the higher end of emulation, a lot of the newer handhelds have similar performance to older models with just a few quality of life improvements. Amnic, for example, seems to announce a new model every few weeks, which I know some people see as negative. I personally love it, as I love to tinker with these things, but my point is, if you find something you think you'll be happy with, I'd say go and get it now, because if you're waiting for the new thing to come out, there's always going to be a new thing coming out. If you have some of these points in the back of your mind when watching the reviews on the huge number of devices out there, I hope this video has helped you make your decision. If you found it helpful, consider subscribing to my channel. I've already posted a few reviews on these types of devices, and I'm planning on posting up a few more. As I mentioned in my last video, I've got the RG40XXV on the way, as well as a few others, including the R36S, which is a cheaper handheld at the moment. I think I picked it up off AliExpress for 50 Australian dollars. The reason I bought it is I've only just gotten into this hobby and I want to see the quality you can get for sort of the cheapest price. So if you're just looking to get into this hobby, you don't want to spend a lot of money, seeing if the older devices out there are still a good option for you. So if you've made it to the end, thanks for watching and I'll catch you in the next one.